sometimes getting through a training session or even through the day can be tough. And when things get tough, it's really good to look at the small achievements, the small joys that we otherwise wouldn't have noticed had we not been paying attention. So in this episode, I want to talk about the small joys and the small achievements in the world of stand-up paddleboarding, because at the end of the day, they aren't that small and should really be appreciated. On top of that, I'll also be going through a few responses you guys gave me on my Instagram. Go follow. My name is Alex, and welcome back to the Staggered Stance podcast. Before we start, I want to go through a little life update. There isn't that much to say other than the fact that I just in general have been doing really good mentally, really good physically. I've stepped up my training a little bit, and so I've been physically exhausted. It's new to me. Not the fact that of me training, obviously, but the amount that I am training. I've really found a good rhythm with zone 2 training, so I've been able to do that more because it's also not a lot of mental strain because you're not killing your body while you're paddling. So it's less mentally heavy, if that makes sense, just in the fact that I don't have to mentally prepare myself to be physically exhausted by the end. I still will be able to feel my limbs after a zone 2 training session. And for who knows how long, that's going to be kind of my priority training for a bit. So I'm looking really forward to that and just to continue in creating a good base. And I've also been doing really good with my jobs. I think I mentioned that at the beginning of the podcast, I mentioned that I'm getting a few jobs. I had four or five jobs, and all of them have dropped off pretty much because it's low season. So now I'm working on one, but the one that I'm working on right now is really good. It's very nice. So I'm having a really good time with that. And I'm also pursuing a lot more creative projects. I'm actually committing to my creative projects. I finally have a little bit of time to try out a little bit more YouTube. So I've been trying to post YouTube videos, and I'm posting I want to post once a week, and I also want to post once a week on the podcast, and I also kind of want to step up the podcast a little bit. I don't know if you noticed, for people who listen on or watch on YouTube, I added a little thumbnail. I usually don't add thumbnails. I just kind of post with whatever YouTube chooses as the thumbnail, but this time I actually made a thumbnail. And I'm going to continue doing that because I do think it adds a little bit to the episode. It makes it a little bit nicer. I knew at the beginning of the podcast I didn't want to go 100%. And now I feel like I'm in this steady state with the podcast to where I know I'm going to continue it and it's going to be a thing for in the future. It's just going to be episode 22, which is crazy. And I'm super happy that I'm continuing committing to this because a lot of times it's very common for me to burn out in my creative projects. But anyways, I am very excited. I want to just step up the podcast a little bit by adding thumbnail. I might add a little intro. We're going to do a few things. We're going to mix it up, and I'm going to just make it a little bit more professional, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see what happens. But anyways, I want to get into the topic. I just want to talk about the fun little joys in paddling, because it's a lot of times I'm a person that always appreciates the little things. There's times when maybe I'm not doing too well mentally, or maybe I'm just struggling to get through the day, but there's always things that I grab onto that I'm like, at least I was able to do this, at least I was able to do that. And it can be anything from I was able to brush my teeth today, I was able to go out and move my body today, I came up with a new podcast episode idea. Just whenever I feel really low, it's those little things that keep me going and keep me motivated. And so I just want to go through a list of things that I find joy in that otherwise aren't necessarily that big, but just are special if you really, really look into it and think about it. I first want to go through a list of skills that us as paddlers have developed that we don't really pay attention to, but we should really appreciate, because paddling gives us so many more skills than just paddling. Through paddling, we've become just so really strong individuals mentally and physically, and I just want to just go along the list of things that I've noticed. The first thing, can we just appreciate the fact that we literally float on water as a sport? I feel like that is just so cool to think about that we are literally above the ocean, just floating over it. And we can see everything below us and we can see everything around us. And we are just in like this perfect position to where we can see everything around us. And I think that's so cool. Like, it's so cool just to be able to float on water and glide on the water. It feels like we're flying, honestly. It feels like we're flying. Another thing is that we can literally ride a toothpick. How many people have boards that are 21.5 inches wide? Like, I feel for pro paddlers, that's pretty much like kind of the area where people's board's width is. And it's like we're able to paddle on that. And it's just like it goes into the fact of just our balance. We've developed such an amazing balance because of our sport, because of the boards that we use. And our balance has translated into so many different parts of our life. There's times where I'm doing balance exercises or we try to do something in the gym and I'm with my friends that don't do paddling. I can see, not that they're lesser, I'll just make that clear, but I can see the difference in balance between me and my friends. And it's very eye-opening just to see like, wow, my body can adapt so much to moving and keeping myself upright and balancing really well. I don't know how else to explain it. Another big thing is that we as paddlers have learned how to read water and use it to our advantage. It's so crazy how the water is such a strong thing. It's like just the sea, anything water, it's so heavy, it's so strong. In some cases, it's dangerous. But us as paddlers and also surfers and just like water sports in general, we've learned how to read and understand and adapt ourselves so that we can then take advantage of the way that the water is working. And this is specifically with like currents or downwinding. We're able to adapt ourselves, like we're able to figure out like, oh, the water is working like this today. Oh, the water's working like that today. I'll do this or I'll do that so that I get the best out of whatever I need to do. Wow, we can really do that. We can read the water. We can understand how this insanely strong thing is working and use it to our advantage. I think that's really cool. This is a more of like a me specifically thing, but every time when I go paddling, I carry my board from my house to the water. And a lot of times it's just too long for me to be able to comfortably carry it under my arm. So what I do is that I put it on my head. And I've been walking to the beach so many times and having my board on my head so many times, I've learned to balance my 14-foot board on my head. And I can go pretty much the entire way there and back. I like to do it on the way back just because my arms are tired. But I like to do that, and I can literally just not worry about my board, and I don't have to hold it. I just keep it on my head, and I'm talking about a 14-foot board walking around town. I can even handle turns sometimes, depending on the wind. Isn't that so awesome and so crazy that I'm able to balance a huge board on my head just through town? And you have no idea how many stares I get when I'm going through town. Everyone's like, oh my god. And then I sometimes get compliments or something. It's like, oh wow, like, you have such a good balance. And I'm like, thank you. It's taken me years to develop this skill, but hey, it works really well because I'm able to rest my arms, because usually on the way back my arms are really tired. So it's just so nice to be able to just relax my arms and just walk home without having to worry about carrying my board. The thing that I mentioned that's kind of similar to breathing the water is that we develop a connection to the water, and I think developing a connection to the water is a very spiritual thing. I think having a connection to the water is just so good for your mental health and your physical health and just like everything in your life. Water is very healing, and so that's also a really good thing. Another thing that I put is that we can learn to ride waves and catch them from anywhere in the water, and this is with downwind. This is also with waves that form really far out, but no other board can catch them except a race board. Whenever I go surfing in the break, which is like 1 or 2 times a year, I'm always so frustrated that I can't catch any of the waves because I'm so used to being able to just barely do anything and catch them, even from so far out, that when I go on a normal surfboard and I have to like actually work really hard and paddle to catch the wave. I'm like, what? This is such a ripoff. Why do I have to do this? Another thing is that if we need to, we can save someone. Our boards are buoyant enough to where if we have to save someone, we can, and our board can hold two people, whether that be just to support them or to even get them on the board, kind of to just paddle themselves or just us back to the beach. A lot of times I've heard that a lot of the short boarders or maybe even long boarders, depending on the side of your board, it's not safe to save someone because the boards that they have can't support two people. So it's unfortunate to where a lot of people can't really save someone in the water, whether it be a rip current or just overall exhaustion, because their boards can't support two people, but our boards can, race boards can. So it's very nice. It's very comfortable. I feel very comfortable knowing that if I really needed to help someone in the water, I could. And the last thing is that we have insane upper body strength, more than the average person, and I love that so much. I love having upper body strength, especially when it comes to women. It's not really common to have super strong upper body strength just because our strength is in our lower body, whereas with men it's in their upper body. So me essentially having stronger arms than legs. I guess the legs also has to do with just the weakness because of my injury, but my upper body is a lot stronger than my lower body, and I think it's pretty neat. I think it's pretty fun. Okay, so that was the appreciating the skills that we've developed just because we're paddlers, and now I want to get into just the small joys of paddling, which is the main part of this episode. And I'm going to go through this, and then I'm also going to go through what you guys put in my Instagram story. Small joys of paddling, getting into a good long distance rhythm. That is amazing. I love getting into a good long distance rhythm because sometimes it gets to the point where you don't feel the pain. I feel like for me it's like I love in long distance when you get to the point where your body is just so exhausted it just goes numb. I don't know if that should be a thing that happens, but it happens to me, and it's really nice because I don't have to worry about the pain that I'm feeling. Another thing is getting a perfect turn. I personally do struggle with turns a lot, so when I get a perfect turn and everything works perfectly, it feels so good. It feels amazing. Same thing goes with getting a perfect beach start. When you get a perfect beach start, it just feels so good and you're just launching yourself forward, and it's so fun. Seeing wildlife while we're paddling, you have no idea how many times I've seen whales, turtles, dolphins, manta rays, like fish. Hi.
Who are you talking to?
We have a special guest, guys. It's the Twice Man. Say hi.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about the little joys of paddling.
Oh, do you like my response?
I did like your response. But I don't think I'm going to share it.
Why not?
Okay, I will share it.
No, don't share it.
Okay, I won't share it.
Why?
Okay, back to regular programming. So yeah, seeing wildlife is just so fun and so rejuvenating. It's so awesome to just see it. Another good thing is that you either have just, if you're doing long distance, you have a lot of time to yourself to just think about what's going on in your life or just other things, or you're focusing so much on your training session that you have no time to think about any external worries or just things that are happening. You're just in the moment focused. I kind of like how you can go from one or the other, and you can allow yourself to either have a mental rest or just overthink everything that's happening in your life. Another thing that I put is not paddling for a while and then getting on the water and feeling that gliding feeling. It's just so, like, you get just this rush when your board just glides on the water and you just get launched forward. It fills you with so much energy. You just get this rush of like adrenaline, and it's so fun. And just the gliding feeling in general, or when you catch a little bump or stuff like that, it just makes you, I don't know how to explain it. It's just so nice to experience, and it's so fun. And if you're doing like a long distance and you get a little bump, you can just rest for a second. It's very fun. When you finally get a skill you've been working on, that is so nice. It is so nice. I love that so much, because a lot of times I have to really try super hard and put a lot of time and effort into developing a new paddle skill just for like muscle memory and everything. So when I finally get it and I can do it consistently, that feels really, really nice. This is an example of what I've been doing when it comes to that stuff. I've been having an issue with my board where I catch a wave and it kind of just, it nosedives and just, it shoots towards the right. And it's really annoying, and I've been trying to fix it, and I am very aware that it happens. And the other day, I was finally able to recover my nose and redirect it back forward instead of it going, just continue to go right. And I was able to save it twice in one training session. And that felt really, really good. And also a big thing that I've been learning recently is that I've been learning how to activate certain muscles when I do a paddle stroke. I had a little private with Christian Anderson and my dad, and we kind of just went over technique. And I finally learned how to use my back, my back and my chest when paddling and doing my paddle stroke, and that felt really nice because I've been struggling to figure out how to do that for so long. My arms always just get so tired, so finally being able to figure out how to activate certain parts of my body in the paddle stroke was really nice. When you find equipment that works for you, and for me specifically, this is clothing, because when I paddle, I don't want something heavy, and I want something tight on my body so that the extra weight doesn't affect me when I get up or when I paddle, but I also don't want it to be too tight because then it's limiting. And I also, when it comes to shorts, I don't want it to ride up if I fall, because then I have to push it back down and it just looks weird and all these things. So when I finally find equipment or just like clothing that I really like, it's very nice. I feel very happy. When you develop a large social life because of competitions, you have no idea how many people I've met and hung out with because I met them at competitions. It's also so eye-opening if it's an international race and there's people from all around the world. You get to meet all of those people, and it's so fun and so eye-opening, and you immediately have this shared joy for a specific sport, paddleboarding. So it's very easy to just get to know each other and just have a topic of conversation that you both like talking about. It's very nice. Oh my god, I've been saying it's very nice so many times, but this is the joys. These are the joys. It's all of it is very nice. Here's one that I put: not getting the results that you wanted during a race, but you got an answer to a question, reached a PR, or landed a skill that you've been working on. When it comes to races, I do feel like winning isn't the answer every single time. Racing really puts your disadvantages or your weaknesses to the forefront. Is that what it's called? When you're putting 110% into your race, you really see the parts of your technique or your strength that you are lacking. And so it's really eye-opening in races to be like, oh, I didn't think that I was lacking in this area. When I get back after this race, I'm going to start working on it more. And I do think it's really nice to have questions answered in races just in general, and you just get newfound motivation, and you have just another thing to work on to really focus your energy on. Or even, like I said, getting a new PR. Maybe you didn't win, but you beat your old time. You got your personal best time. I feel like that is just such a great achievement. Here's another one: the happiness after a training session when you know you got your ass kicked but also had fun the entire time. That is so fun, because there's a lot of times at the end of a training session where I am so beat, but I had so much fun the entire time, or I know, like, I can feel it in my bones that training session was such a good session and productive session. It just, even though you are physically exhausted, you are mentally so happy and so motivated and determined to just continue to get this feeling. It's like a high. Honestly, it's like a high, just that post-training feeling that you feel after a really good training session. It feels so good. Like, you could be just being like, why am I here? Like, why am I doing this during the training session? For the second that it's over, you're like, oh wow, that was a really good session. I want to feel like that again. Another small thing, getting swag at competitions. Wait, is it swag or swag? I think it's swag, but I always say swag. It's so fun because you get just like random stuff. You get stickers or you get a shirt. I have used so many shirts from events or competitions, and it's just so fun because you kind of just see it and you are reminded of it. Extra points if it's like an actually like nice, good quality shirt and it looks pretty and it works with other things in your closet. And that's fun. Another fun thing that I put is helping out the environment whilst on the water. I want you to sit down and think about it. I feel like there's not a single paddler who has been paddling and sees a piece of trash and hasn't gone to pick it up. Because we are on the water and we are a lot of times in areas that the average person isn't, we become more aware to how the environmental changes or just plastic or just, I don't know, emissions are just really affecting the environment. And so we become more attuned to it and more aware of the situation that's happening. And we also see pieces of garbage that people on the beach wouldn't see. So we go pick it up. And there's times where I come back after a training session and I have just piles of garbage on my board, especially after heavy rain or something like that. I feel like it's going to happen a lot coming up because rainy season is coming up where I live, and I know there's going to be so much garbage and so much waste in the water. And the last one that I wrote is the fact that you can do paddling in so many different ways. Paddling is so adaptable. It is so incredibly adaptable, whether you're a beginner, advanced, intermediate. There's so many different ways because there's so many different ways that you can find bodies of water. You can find them flat, you can find them moving, you can paddle on all of those things. It's a very adaptable sport and something that everyone can get involved in, and I think that's super fun. It's really great. It's really nice. Okay, so that's all the stuff that I wrote, and now I want to go through the few things that you guys added on my Instagram. First one is seeing locations or animals that no one would see unless they paid for it. And that's a big thing here where I live because a lot of people pay for whale watching tours. A lot of people pay for those things. But when we're in the water and it's like whale season, you are bound to see a whale just fully jump, full body out of the water. And I didn't have to pay for it. I've also experienced with dolphins. There was, I think you call it a pod of dolphins. I was paddling and the pod of dolphins were slowly getting closer to me and you could see them surface. And what happened is that I was still paddling and they surfaced, and right before they hit my board, they went under my board. They were so close to me. It was two dolphins in a pod, and they were like inches away from me, and they just went under the water right before they hit my board, and it was so fun. And I've seen whales go full body out of the water. It's great. Guys, I realized real quick, I realized that, I don't know if you guys can hear this, my computer, the fan is going crazy, and I had this issue last week too, but it's like I don't know what to do, guys. And you can hear it and it's annoying. We're gonna try to move my computer so you can't hear it as much. Okay, fingers crossed that is better, but I'm gonna have to figure out a way to work around that because if my computer is gonna continue to do that while I film podcast episodes, I'm not looking forward to that. Anyways, another thing that someone put is the friendships that you find in the water, and like I said before, it's so fun to meet so many people. It's just so nice. It's amazing. Another thing is doing downwind. I feel like doing downwind is so fun, guys. That's the best thing. It's my most favorite thing ever. And I was so sad when the gorge was canceled because that's my favorite race. That's my favorite race in the entire year, just to do downwind. I don't really care. When it comes to the downwind race, I don't care about my placings. I just care about catching really good downwind bumps. Another person put, actually Soren, hi Soren, put the feeling that you get when dropping in and making it on a big wave with your race board. And it's so fun to experience that because it's very hard to successfully drop in on a wave with your board just because it's so long. It's very common for your race board to nosedive just because of the length of it. So successfully dropping in on a wave and being able to stay on it, it's so fun. And you just have a little like internal or even external like waving your hands, just celebration sensation after you do it because it's such an awesome thing to do and it feels really good doing it. Someone put the inner peace I feel when it's just me against the ocean. That's really nice. I really like that. Like I said, it's very nice when you are just there on your own with your thoughts and going with the movement of the water and just seeing where it takes you. It's very peaceful. I don't know, it could be peaceful depending on whether or not you like being with your thoughts. But there's times where you could just like be with your thoughts, or just other times where your mind just goes silent and the only thing that you're paying attention to is that one paddle stroke after the next and just experiencing that feeling of being on the water. And Subdoc, hi Subdoc, he put, I like falling in. I thought that was really funny at first, but I'm like, you know what? That's also, I can really relate. There's times where I'm just overheating and I'm like exhausted and I'm tired and then I fall. And I'm just given a second just to relax for a bit. I refresh real quick, even though in the time that I fall and get back on, I wasted a few seconds. It's like a big reset. And like being in the water just gives you a little jolt and you'll just continue forward. And there's also times where you really don't want to fall and you just get so anxious over the thought that you might fall. So when you do fall, all of that anxiety goes away. Like, okay, I don't have to worry about falling anymore because I already did, so I can just continue with my training session. Or I can just continue with the race even. I do think that falling in definitely alleviates that pressure of not wanting to fall in. One last response that I got after I had already filmed the podcast episode was being the first one to get to the first buoy in a race. And when I tell you I relate to that so much, it's so it's so awesome to be like, oh yeah, maybe I didn't do well in the race. Oh, but I was first to the buoy or second to the buoy. I remember like a Sailor to Sub Open race, not the one that happened this year, but last year. I kind of reached the buoy the same time that all of like the pro men did. So the entire time after I was like, oh my god, like I reached the buoy with all the pro men. And back in the day when we would have internal races in our team, like we would have like fun races, there would be an award for whoever got to the first buoy first. We called it the golden buoy. So that answer really resonated with me. That is all for the answers on Instagram. I really appreciate it that you guys put in your guys' answers because it's also fun to see like the community's response or just the people that follow me, like their response to these things that I talk about on the podcast. And it also brings out different perspectives that I otherwise don't have or wouldn't have thought of had I not seen it. But anyways, I think that is all for today. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. This was a really fun one to make. And it was very upbeat and positive. And whenever you're feeling down, whenever you're struggling, just think about those small things. Just pay attention to what you're doing throughout the day. Anyways, make sure to rate the podcast, whether it be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or comment and subscribe on YouTube. If you have any other things you want to bring up, any other joys that you find, definitely mention it to me, whether it be like on YouTube with the comments or on my Instagram. The Instagram will be linked down below. I will see you guys next week for another podcast episode. Bye-bye.